What's up, guys? Welcome to Fitter Food Radio. We are episode 100, no, 210. And it's me, Matt Whitmore.
And me, Karis.
Just Keris.
Just Karis.
We should have a little jingle. We should have a little intro song.
You know what
Do
I
you
mean?
think?
Yeah, like Adam Buxton does on his
Yeah.
podcast. He does a little, gets his keyboard out.
Oh, maybe I'll start
It makes a little
practicing.
song.
I should get the hand pan though. Keep saying I want to start hand
Yeah,
pan lessons.
yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. Fitter Food Radio, episode 210 with Bing.
Why don't you do like a YouTube channel that's like Matt Waffle with handpan in the background and everyone can use it for like sleep and almost like a guided meditation. The story got that boring that with the
We
handpan I just fell asleep.
well, there's that like quite big YouTuber called Matt Does Fitness.
Oh yeah, yeah.
He's one of the gladiators now.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, yeah. I can't remember which one, but maybe I could do like a Matt Does stuff. Matt does things.
Things. What things are you going to fill this
All
YouTube channel with?
all the things.
All right.
It'd just be me like imagine me like yeah, Matt plays the handpan.
We haven't got past the handpan though. What else are you going to
I
do?
don't know. It will come naturally, would it? I just think of stuff. But the idea is to get good. It's not just going to be here, watch me
Yeah, yeah.
having a bash at the handpan.
Well, you did say you were keen on singing lessons the other day when you had a little go at rapping on our. Basically, we got a. I have to highly recommend. I guess it might not be suitable for everyone, but we brought a JBL party box, didn't we, for
Yeah.
barbecues, and if we go out and about, there's like areas here where you can play music on the cliffs. There's just no one for miles, is there?
No.
So we brought one and it's amazing.
Oh yeah.
It's like you can go back and have a little school disco wherever you go, but then we brought a microphone to go with it, and then you were rapping to So
I
Solid Crew, but you were actually really good.
oh thanks, babes. Um no, but what's mad is I've never done karaoke in my life, ever. And I didn't really think it was my jam. And then when I was testing out
And then you
the
realized
we got the microphone for
it was your jam donut.
Keris was going on a hen do, and the microphone was actually for karaoke for that, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
So whilst Keris was kind of getting one of her penis cakes
Ready.
ready, I was like, well, let me just make sure the microphone works and it's all set up. And I just got right into it, didn't I?
Yeah.
I was like, bloody hell, I don't want to put it down. This is great. So yeah, there we go. Karaoke king.
Maybe people could submit things that you try. That's almost like a TV show.
Oh yeah.
But it has to be something that you wouldn't expect Matt to do.
Yeah.
If everyone said like an ultra
And
marathon or anything
nothing
like that, I'd be like, yeah, but
nothing illegal or dangerous.
yeah, yeah, no, of course. But it's interesting because we said this the other day when we were talking about like behavior change, weren't we? And we were saying on our programs, there's like we've been asking everyone to explore resistance rather than kind of give yourself a load of crap because you don't do something. We've been like, no, try and get curious about resistance because there's certain things that are very easy. And then we were looking at our situation. We were like, we find it really easy to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go for a run and like eat enough protein and prep generally healthy food and say no to too much booze so we can get an early night. Like we find that easy. But there's other aspects of our life that we find are really hard. And it can be like, well, things like our business and switching off from work and trusting processes and not feeling like we've got to, work really hard at stuff. Family situations that
Mm,
we've like feel we have to get involved and help and support and do everything. So it's really interesting that people look at us as healthy, but we could be deemed as just as unhealthy, if you see what I mean, in that we always like the hard stuff. And when you look around, a lot of people in our industry that everyone puts on a pedestal, they love the hard stuff, but that doesn't make them healthy because to some degree it's your comfort zone and it's
mm.
also an override of deeper emotional states. And what we've kind of resisted is creative things and um, hobbies and things that we could be bad at. Like we've resisted all that, me and you, for about the
Yeah.
last 10 years. And that's why having your singing lesson or learning the handpan or learning a language where you fail and fail and fail and you're not very good at it and you're using different areas of your brain and you're going to be judged and you're going to be criticized. Like it's a really brilliant thing to do if you think about like emotional balance and regulation and for your health because you're in a different state of mind. So you've got different chemicals flowing around your body. Whereas in the hard stuff, we're totally in like, usually in adrenaline mode, usually in doing mode, usually in like, dopamine and all these kind of things. But we don't want that a lot of the time. So what I'm kind of zooming back around to is your YouTube channel could be getting you to do all these really like Zen-based activities or
Yeah.
creative or like, like could you sew a cushion, for example, and like just watch you kind of try and master a sewing machine or something. Do you see what I mean? Like that's totally against the grain of what your brain is used to doing and
Mm.
understands or has a real attachment to. Because I think the other thing we talked about is you can get in it if you're so attached to the outcome, then the drive is there. Do you see what I mean? But and in a way that's what screws us because we get very controlling and specific about it. But if you were just like, no, I'm going to learn how to use a sewing machine so that I can fix cushions rather than always buy new ones, which is generally what the generations like my mum did that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I don't know, it's just really interesting because I know you would happily learn how to use a strimmer or a hacksaw or something like that'd be like, yeah, because then I can go and do hard stuff in the garden. Do you see what I mean? Like, so that would be appealing to you.
Yeah, no, I know exactly what you mean. But do you know what's interesting actually? As you were talking then, it's like, we often talk about I mean, we've spoken about this before, haven't we? In terms of like you don't have to be good at something necessarily to enjoy it. And we've spoken about this with you, when you said when you went to your pottery classes and you were like, oh, I'm just not very good and everyone else is better than me, more creative than me, got a better eye for detail. But it's like, yeah, but you're not going to become like the grandmaster pottery person.
Yeah,
You know what I
no.
mean? Like, you go in because there's the social element. It's creative.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like you get to use your hands, like, and whatever. And I think what's interesting, going back to what you mentioned earlier about like having these like levels of discipline in certain areas, and I think like we keep saying like we want to do more creative stuff. We want to do more stuff like this just for us. It's not work related, but like you say, like that comes with an element of discipline as well to allow yourself to do such things. Like I remember as a kid, I used to love drawing, loved it. I mean, I was actually pretty good at drawing, but that's because I drew all the time. It was a passion of mine, and I wouldn't even think about it. I'd just randomly be like, oh, let me just get my pad out and pens and pencils and just draw whatever, like whatever came to mind. But obviously now as an adult, like I still doodle. Like I doodle in my diary a lot and stuff like that. It's just like random stuff. But I kind of was thinking about this the other day, like how nice would it be to just be like, right, I'm just gonna grab a coffee, just go outside with a pad and a pencil and just draw whatever I want. Like I don't have to draw a specific thing. It doesn't need to be a work of art. It doesn't necessarily have to go into a frame, but just that kind of creative side of me that before I used to just do without even giving it a second thought.
Yeah,
Whereas now, for me to do anything that's just for me, even my training to a degree sometimes like goes out the window for this reason. It's almost like it comes with this like
clauses
with
instead
these
of requirements.
clauses like well, you can't possibly do that until you've achieved X, Y, and Z.
Mm.
Until this is done, you can't do that. And
Another statement you might make is this won't count. Like, so if you could only do 10 minutes, it won't count as a session. Do you see what I mean?
I don't
Or
say that.
no, 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 but
All
that's a
right.
kind of common thing. Or there's no point going for a 10-minute walk. It
Say
doesn't count.
I'm the king of fast
Yeah,
workout.
I know. But then there's lots of things where, okay, like 5 minutes of drawing for you wouldn't count for anything.
No,
And
no.
like what's really interesting is when you actually step back from it, this kind of actually came off the back of me doing psychedelics. And one of the things was like, you need to get rid of numbers. Like you need to, and a
Mm.
lot of meditation practices, this is whether you're looking at like Joe Dispenza or any of the kind of meditation philosophies, they often say like when you meditate, you're kind of no person, nobody, nowhere, in no time. There's no, so you kind of get rid of all the concepts that can restrict and control us in everyday life. And this is when like it can become such a state of bliss because there's just no meaning anymore to anything. So nothing is bad, nothing is good, everything just is.
Mm.
But I think when it comes to health, we're so obsessed with time. Do you see what I mean? And we're so obsessed with the, like you just said, the clauses and our beliefs and the meaning around everything. And we are so attached to the outcome. So everything has to take this long or achieve this or tick this box. that we've totally, if you really like look at it, and a lot of comedians have started to take the piss out of the health industry, and I'm really grateful for it because it's got absolutely ridiculous. Like, I understand we might have needed accountability. I understand we need a bit of motivation and gamification, maybe. Like, we like to see a winning streak that we did, our steps for 7 days running, or we did our workouts, whatever. I understand that motivation, but now it's become insane how much we can count, what we can quantify with health, all of the different messages coming through. There's just a new thing to count, track, and number, and basically for a lot of people becomes a stick to beat themselves with.
Mm.
And it's got too much. And what's great is when comedians are kind of highlighting this, and I came across Josh Pugh's video about running,
Mm.
and obviously he does like running before social media, and it was knocking on everyone's doors, telling them your split times. So
Just
imagine
been for a run.
just everyone, here are my split times, here was my fastest minute. And then he hands him a piece of paper and goes, and there's the map of where I went.
The route I
And
did.
it's so insane that we do that on Strava. Like, I've done it, but you've done it. We've done it for so long. You never, and then the guy whose door he knocked on, he goes, "Why are you telling me this?" And he goes, "Just thought I'd tell you." It's like,
Yeah, yeah. You're going. What you think about that? How'd you
I'd
feel?
feel,
How'd
yeah,
you feel about my run? Well, what's
it's
did you
bonkers.
like it? You got anything to say?
Would you like to like it? Like, social media is turning us crazy when you think about it, because even when I started running for two reasons: weight loss and mood. And I did develop like rules for myself. Everyone does. So it's like, okay, you can run for 30 minutes, you should probably run for 45, you know what I mean? Then it was 45 for a few years, then it became an
Yeah.
hour. And but I didn't track anything because we didn't have any of these devices. But I did have standards that I had put in place and completely invented. And I think what's been great about actually moving abroad as well for me, and somebody mentioned this to me the other day and said this is the best thing you could have ever done, was when you get into this place of health and wanting to kind of, you get very attached to outcomes. So your why can go from weight loss to like, oh, I feel better, oh, actually I'm really good at this, oh, I'm actually could compete in this, oh, I'm not bad, I've got friends here.
Mm.
The why just keeps building and building and building, and then we've actually forgot that we're supposed to enjoy the experience. And if you really think about it, we've forgot that we're supposed to enjoy life, because it's all become about health and longevity. It's all like do, 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 do. It's no one's really sat there just smelling roses anymore and going, isn't life wonderful? Because there's a lot, don't get me wrong, you could perceive yourself as happy because you've
Mm.
been for a run, you feel great, and now you can eat pizza or whatever, or now you can, you know, there's highs. I'm not saying there isn't highs, but there's not this like positive state of being without doing,
Yeah.
and that's getting lost. And with the exercise, I think what can happen, especially with social media and Instagram, is the algorithm feeds what you're interested in. So your world gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, and the rules get harsher and harsher and harsher and harder to follow as we age, especially with women going through perimenopause, menopause. You can't do half the things you could have done 10, 20 years ago. So then you just feel guilty. And I think moving abroad helped me massively expand my mind. Firstly, where we came, do you know what I mean? And you suddenly, your eyes are opened up to nature because we're in a different setting. The novelty factor comes in. So I'm kind of waking up a bit to that. But meeting people who are like, never been to the gym in their lives, do you know what I mean? And just hike or stay active, or, maybe surf. And I know that's not possible for everybody. And you said this, like, a lot of people have office jobs. So, this lifestyle isn't available to them. But I think there could be a nice balance in the middle, where it could be maybe less of the kind of exercise for the point of X, and more of the exercise because you want to get out and see the world and hike. And so a client this week was really struggling, and I said, go and just hike somewhere, try and find a hill, get to the top of the hill and just sit there with yourself and just see the expanse and see, that this is a grain of sand in the general scheme of things. It's nothing, but you're turning it, because our worlds are getting smaller and smaller and smaller because of, well, mainly because of these. It's like
Your phone.
you can turn something into this huge thing that it's not, with a
Well,
huge significance and meaning that it does not have. And you could tear it
true.
down by saying, if I told my great grandma about this problem right now, what would they say? Do you see what I mean? And because they were much more regulated, they were much more balanced. Gyms weren't necessarily a thing, but they always knew, like, don't eat too much, we need to be active. But they just didn't turn it into such a,
What's mad is like I hadn't even realized this. Like it wasn't even that long ago when you couldn't even track your runs.
I know, that's what I'm
The only
saying.
way to run really was to go by time.
Yeah.
You could set a stopwatch, be like, oh, I'm gonna do an hour run or
Yeah,
whatever.
or a route you'd have,
Or
wouldn't you?
yeah, and if you happen to know the distance of a route, which,
Yeah, yeah.
never really thought about that. But I'll tell you what, speaking of like phones and distraction, blah blah blah. Um, I I got a new phone over the weekend. I was due an upgrade when I so I got the latest iPhone, as you do. Apple, Apple have still got a hold on me. Um, anyway, set up a new phone and it weren't playing ball, trying to restore it and from its like, from the iCloud and it just weren't working. But neither now was my old phone. So I was basically without phone for 36 hours. I
Ugh.
know. And it was annoying because obviously like, I'm like, I want to message my clients, like blah blah blah. But when you're kind of like you're you know, it's forced your hand. It's like you have no choice in this matter. Like your phones don't work. You know what I mean? Like you go from irritated, frustrated into embracing it. And I was like, God, it's actually really quite nice. And
In your defense, there wouldn't be the same level of irritation had had it not been your office. Like
yeah,
your phone is your work.
yeah,
So
exactly.
I think you would be much more relieved and zen about the whole thing if it wasn't if we didn't if you worked in, as a gardener or whatever and you were like, oh, clients can't get hold of me.
Yeah,
Oh well.
never mind.
Yeah, do you know what I mean? Like I don't think you'd be that bothered.
But what was interesting, the second my phone worked, it's like bang, like made up for lost time. I was like straight on it and then back into that routine of like feeling like I was picking it up every bloody 5 minutes, even when I don't need to. And I just thought like it was an eye opener because I was like, I because I didn't have my phone yesterday morning. I went for a walk without my phone. I was like, there's no point taking it because it doesn't work. You know what I mean? Like, like yeah, maybe I could have taken some photos or whatever, but I'm not overly bothered about that. And I was like, God, this is actually really nice to just be out without a phone and no distraction. I'm just enjoying my walk with Hamish.
Well, it's really interesting because I'm reading a book by it's called Mindsight by Daniel Siegel. Highly recommend.
It's a cool name, that.
And he talks about he's a psychologist, but he's very big on he was a doctor originally or trained to be a doctor and said he could see that actually psychology affected health more than the illness that someone might even have, like sickle. He talks about a case of sickle cell anemia. And so obviously this is kind of the route that I've been not really studying because a lot of things for myself and for my clients are no longer working like they used to. And I think it's because our world is changing so fast. Our lifestyles are changing so fast. And we have access to so much more information than we're actually genetically able to take on almost like, as in like and when I say genetic I mean like our brains haven't evolved, sorry, not genetics really, but our brains haven't evolved to deal with this amount of information. And what the brain is doing, not the brain actually, let's talk about the mind, because the mind and the brain are two separate things. The brain is the physical, obviously, like holder, but it's guided by the mind. And the first thing he talks about is when you get together, doctors, psychotherapists, physiotherapists, any kind of therapist involved in a kind of healing role, like define the mind. Where is it? What does it do? Do you see what I mean?
Mm,
And they've all had to like work together to try and come up with like a definition of what the mind is. But essentially, mind is guiding the brain, and the brain is obviously kind of autonomically. So you're not even having a say in this. So as a result of what the mind says, the brain will then regulate the nervous system, and that affects everything, and especially our hollow organs, which is the bladder, the bowel, the heart, because it's like all done through the muscles. So obviously there's this regulation of like this has to happen whether you're conscious or not. Do you see what I mean? And the lungs, that's what keeps you alive. It's autonomic.
hmm
So these are the things that are kind of also going to be obviously significantly affected if the mind is giving danger signals all the time. And I think the problem with our phone is that's what it's done to us. Like we're constantly in a state of fear and danger, and everyone's worlds are getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And because we have a negative bias, all we can see is like, oh my God, we're screwed. Like we're actually screwed in future. And then it only takes negative interactions with neighbors because they're also in a state of fear. Do you see what I mean? And they're angry and they're fearful. So we have some horrible interactions across our day. And we feel so uncomfortable that then obviously we don't eat so well, or we don't sleep very well. We don't feel like going to the gym and having more discomfort. Do you see how it's now starting to spiral a little bit? And so it doesn't matter how many coaches you employ to go, you should eat more protein and you should get to bed earlier. You'll keep doing that same behavior over and over again because it's kind of an it's basically a response to, it's a reaction, sorry, not a response to the that existed your existence at that point in time. So the the one of the things he says is really powerful is start to understand it, start to see it, but also start to, essentially most of us are acting when we're doing, like, spinning out and panicking and worrying and overthinking and kind of lashing out at people and irritated. We're in the part of our brain which is like the amygdala, which is the fear, it's kind of the fear zone. And we're just reacting and reacting and reacting because we're like we've been penned into a corner. Especially if we don't like our life, our job, our family, our home, we've been penned in, and we're just like, kind of snapping out basically in survival mode. And the way out of that situation is to start to go back into prefrontal cortex, which is another area of the brain where we can be a bit more objective and essentially see the bigger picture and see that the first thing you have to start doing is watching the mind. Do you see what I mean? So we can see the chatter, we can see the interpretation, we can see the negativity. It's all coming from the past usually, and we're reacting on that basis. And if we can go to the prefrontal cortex, we can observe the mind, we can see it go, this is terrible, that's terrible, you should do this, you should say this, and we can kind of have this amazing pause, like just wait. And you can then start to realize that the mind is speaking a load of crap. It's like making stuff up, it's trying to give meaning to things that have no meaning. And you can eventually, in time, because you're present and you're aware, you can start to respond. And then eventually you can update your programs so that you don't even go into that reactive state in the first place. But one of the key things he says is there's different areas of the brain that we need to bring back online. And it's just like a muscle. So this will appeal to you. We've got to flex it and flex it and flex it and flex it before it builds. And if you're not doing any of that, then if you're not using different areas of the brain, and some of this is because you've got to spend time offline, you've got to have time destimulated, you've got to have time doing creative things, you've got to have time being mindful, practicing awareness, some kind of meditative practice, which I know is really impossible when you start. It was impossible for me. So I've come to it in stages and stages and stages, bringing down my kind of nervous system state. And then you spend ages watching you, as in small Matt.
You go. Just
Look, see, this is attention spread disorder already. Look,
no,
you are no.
oh no,
He's broke.
you ruined my moment. Hamish looked mega cute then.
It's very cute, but why were you zooming around the room looking for something cute? I'm trying to teach you something. If you were trying to teach me a bicep curl and I start going, that guy over there is really cute, man.
No,
You would absolutely in the gym. Imagine this if I'm like, he's really hot. You get so irritated by that, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you?
yeah,
You're like,
yeah.
I'm here trying to teach you a bicep curl because you said you want a bicep like me.
In my defense, looking at you, I can see Hamish because his head is literally just behind you,
Okay.
and I thought he was just about
So what was the
going into a dream.
last two sentences
Just
I
carry
said
on.
before Hamish?
Just
Tell me the last
just
two
carry on.
sentences.
Just keep going.
Okay, here's a question you can answer. What did you tell me was frustrating you about yourself yesterday? Immensely frustrating you as you were doing all your work over the weekend.
I'm too easily distracted.
There you go. And then I said, what are you doing about that?
Oh, gosh. What's the name of that book again?
Exactly. And it's funny because I've sent you the book 3 days ago. I don't think it's been opened.
Well, in my defense, one did use one of his Audible credits
To buy it.
to get it.
Yeah. I
So
think
it's there.
you need to do a bit more than that.
Hey, step one.
I'm honestly blessed in that my stomach does not work, and so I have no choice but to go down this route, And what's interesting is gastroenterologists start recommending, once the usual stuff doesn't work, they recommend dopamine agonists, dopamine antagonists, serotonin reuptake inhibitors. So this is all neuroscience. It's all chemicals made by our brain. So even gastroenterologists know that the reason your sphincters don't work, and all of them cannot work at different times, as in your esophageal sphincter, your pyloric sphincter, the reason your stomach won't empty or whatever is because of it's a nervous system thing that's driven by chemicals, and the chemicals are something the brain dispenses under the guidance of the mind, because the mind is going to interpret the sensory feedback, if that makes sense.
Hmm.
But going back to the bicep curl, what he says in is that you have to do different things and have different elements of kind of activity in your day, like cognitive activity and inactivity, to train the different areas of the brain to understand the bigger picture. Don't let your mind go. He calls it, I think he says something, slipping into the lower world or something. That's what he calls it, not the lower world. I'm getting it mixed with shamanism now, but like going into the when you go down, you react from this like you're no different to a lizard. Do you see what I mean? And in terms of how you react to a situation, you're like eat, make, kill. Like you're
Yeah.
just primal, and you can't have that executive function to go, I'm about to overreact to something that doesn't warrant this reaction.
Mm.
But just going back to you, it's like when it comes to the gym, you have so much knowledge and wisdom. If any, that you're constantly, everyone comes to you with all their gym problems, and you're like, well, it's because of this, this, and this, and you don't do that, and you don't train this, and you're overtraining here, and and you'll explain the science and the logic of like how to train for health and longevity, and like keep those results for as long as humanly possible in your life. And everyone ignores you half the time, don't they? Because they're
Yeah.
just too busy with like, but I want to be fast and furious, or I want this, I want it on my time frame, and they ignore you. But it's the same with our brain. It's like everybody wants right now, every single client says to me often, I just want to go and live in a cabin in the woods in the hills and have peace in my life. Everyone is saying that. And, or like you, everyone is saying, I wish my brain feels like it's going nuts. I'm so distracted. It's so chaotic. It's so loud. It's so chattery. But then when do you spend time trying to achieve the opposite of that? So wherever attention goes, energy flows. I think it's, I'm sure it was Gabamate. And if you're in it, that's where all your energy
Mm.
goes. You're never going to change that. You're in it. And so the first bit is to step back and start watching yourself. And that's really hard. And you make that separation first, and you're like, okay, you can give it a name, small Keris, small Matt, like small Keris runs around all day like an ant. So you can watch her. You can watch her think that she has to control and fix everything. And then when you're kind of watching, you can then start to say, like I would often guide myself a bit better and go, you don't need to do anything about that. You don't need to say that. You don't need to intervene here. You need to allow this person to go and make all those mistakes. You cannot reply to that text message and you will not be judged. Or if you are judged, it doesn't matter. You
Yeah.
know what I
Yeah.
mean? And you can really coach yourself. Like that is the way for me. That's the only way, because all of my conditioning is so strong, and it's come from 40 plus years of experiences, dogma, situation, everything, like our parents, our grandparents, but also around us. And then we create a lot of it ourselves based on being socially acceptable and basic and just not wanting to be judged or criticized, wanting to fit in, wanting to compare, wanting to, be an acceptable member of society. So but we can put too much emphasis in that area of our lives, especially if we've had trauma at home and things like that. That becomes our safety net. And I think it's got to a point now with social media and more health apps and rules and dogma where you're going to fail at it all because it's just impossible. You
Mm.
can't achieve any of it anymore.
Yeah.
And consumerism knows this, and so advertisers are capitalizing on the fact that there's an app or product or supplement or coach for every single problem that you have, and it's coming down your feed because you keep googling it and searching it and looking up in Reddit apps. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, and I think that's largely
So you're
why,
being hacked.
like I want to like move away from doing things that are linked to things that I enjoy or am doing to be creative. Like move away from doing those things on a laptop or on a phone.
Yeah, you said
Like
that.
like for example,
Mm.
uh like when I've always my training plans and every workout that I do, I still write down in a pad, like pen and paper. I have my workout logs and I take it with me religiously and I write it all down and I look back on the different pages, see what I did before, this, that, and the other. Could never get on with the apps that allow you to do those things. It's much more convenient, keeps everything in one place, but it's just not for me. Same with a diary. I still still have a paper diary. I do use my phone just for like certain things, but mainly like everything's in my paper diary. And I've even been thinking about this with my Portuguese lessons as well, which I've actually put on hold because what I was noticing, and this goes back to what we were chatting about near the beginning, of my Portuguese lessons were starting to become a stress to me, not a relief, not a release, not something that I was looking forward to. Whereas at
Yeah.
first I was, because what I found was is that my workload was going up. I wasn't being as probably as organized as I could have been, and I was getting to my lesson, almost literally just finishing up on a task and being like, right, okay, stop that, but open up Preply, and open up the video call with my tutor.
You're in a state
And
of pressure. You're never going to learn. That's like,
yeah,
it's terrible.
and my brain
Yeah.
was, and there was one class that was a real opener to me, and my tutor Jose, he's amazing, and he was like, let's revisit some of the basics, because I think I was doing so badly, like, and I think he was a bit like, but you know this, Matt, but I think my brain was just frazzled. I
Yeah.
was elsewhere, my thoughts were elsewhere. I wasn't present.
But also, like, what was really interesting is I know you've reflected on that now. And this is another great point in the Daniel Siegel book. He says, reflection, by the way, should we use reflection often as a way to, again, like criticize and beat ourselves up about situations. So we pause. So everyone is reflecting, but they're pausing and reflecting
Mm,
negatively. And reflection in its truest form is a compassionate act where we go back to that kind of higher self, that objectivity, and go, wait a minute, if you didn't attach to all these outcomes here and didn't have all these have so much meaning around this, like what was the situation here really? And that's the only way I think that you're ever going to really change is not to. I mean, I remember doing reflective training when I was training to be a nutritional therapist, and I remember thinking, I do this all the time anyway. This is such a bullshit exercise. Like I do this loads. I'll find the problems when they arise and I'll work on them and improve them. So like classic, as in inner critic coming through whenever I was reflecting, never sitting down and going, oh, this, and that was a good thing, but
mm,
also that was a bad thing, but could you kind of be kinder to yourself about it? Do you see what I mean? Could you be kind and go, okay, the actual problem is you're pushing yourself too hard.
mm,
Do you see what I mean? So in the situation of the Portuguese, what's nice is now you're reflecting and having some compassion because you're like, I was too stressed. But
yeah.
after the Portuguese lesson, you were saying to me, I just think I'm not cut out to learn a language. Like literally your entire identity went into like a spiral of like, and I think this tapped. So this is the thing. We always go back to the library of our past for evidence that we're kind of failing or we're going to fail or that we're doomed. And you went back to like, I think school and exams. And you've
Mm,
often said to me, like, I could really like something, but put me in an exam situation and I could never get the grades. And I had to really like something to learn about it and to understand it. But like, there's areas of your life now where no one needs to, you'll never doubt yourself. Do you see what I mean? Because you found your passion, you found it's part of you to, for example, to understand like exercise and lifting and kind of confidence and mindset and balance. There's parts of you where it's just bedded in and it's
mm,
you, and then there's parts where it's a struggle. And I'd say the struggle for you has always been technology to some degree. So even running
yeah.
a business involving technology, because and admin and the like, I worked in an office for a bit, but even I find it a huge struggle. Like it's not easy for me, but I think you've definitely found, but it's like knocked your confidence a little bit because you don't do information IT, do you know what I mean? And
No.
so something that suddenly is quite fragile and it controls you and you don't know what to do when it breaks and things like that. And that's quite
What?
your ego doesn't like that basically. No
No.
one's ego likes that, but
And I had a bit of a moment a couple of months ago, and I was trying to migrate over to a new training platform app for all my like my coaching clients and their training and nutrition stuff. And I just couldn't get my head around it at all. And I was just getting in a right hoo-ha because again, I think it was that story was coming up of like you figures two planks, Matt.
oh
Like you can't do this. Like why can't you seem to make this work? And in the end, like I ended up just canning it and going, you know what? better the devil you know. Like stick to the app that you're not happy with because you know how to use
Yeah,
it. Until and don't get me wrong, I know that if I gave myself the time to do it, I could get my head around
yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
But at the moment, I feel like I don't have that because I'm a bit like I haven't got a day, a whole day or two to spend on this because I've got
Yeah,
X, Y, and Z to do. So that if I backtrack, there's definitely areas where I'm like, okay, I could be more organized, I could be more focused, and then that will allow me to get my head around it.
yeah,
But I'm trying to do it in too much of a chaotic way. But just the last point I wanted to make, sorry, on the Portuguese lessons was I've actually I like I said, I love my tutor. I think he's great, but I'm actually now thinking I'm going to do in-person lessons because A, I just like doing in-person stuff. B, there won't even be the option for me to go from completing one work task to literally then just going like close that tab, open this tab, go
yeah,
straight
yeah,
into a lesson because I'd have to drive somewhere. So it'd be like, right, okay, you need to give yourself half an hour, maybe make yourself a coffee to go, get in the car,
yeah,
compose your thoughts, clear your head,
yeah, yeah,
and then sit down with that person. And then there's no distraction because you're staring at a person. You know what I mean? You're not looking at a screen that's got other tabs and notifications coming up.
yeah,
And yeah, fair enough. There's people probably listening going, yeah, but you can switch off your notifications. You can
yeah,
close the other
yeah,
tabs. And yeah, you can, 100%. But the reality is like most people leave tabs open because they'll need them later
yeah,
or
yeah.
whatever. So I,
Could you take this one step further? So, and this is what I'm saying about if you do scale back your entire routine and start doing a bit less to see a little bit more and practicing the awareness, what would be even greater than that is that you go into that Portuguese lesson and you focus and you're right. So with everybody now, like set and setting is everything. Like we need to make we're not doing a lot to help ourselves by having our phones on and all that kind of ping, 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 ping.
yeah.
So always be thinking about environments that help you to focus and concentrate and be mindful. But actually, could you approach that situation watching your mind? So as you're going to the Portuguese lesson, going, this is going to be better. This is going to be so much better. Like I know I'm going to get this now. And then by lesson two, your Portuguese teacher starts to look a bit frustrated or give off some body language signals that suggest that he's like, God, this guy's thick as two planks. You know what I mean? Like, because that's what your psyche had already anticipated or has already planted the seed of. So, say your Portuguese teacher looks a bit frustrated with you. Can you allow all of that?
Mm.
Because that is brilliant mindfulness. So, first of all, you would watch your ego go, he thinks I'm thick. He thinks I'm thick. I am thick. What am I even doing here? Why didn't I even move to Portugal? I'm never going to learn Portuguese. Da, 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 da. And that's how the stream of thought will
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
If you can zoom out and like see that a little bit, feel it, feel your stomach, because this is the other thing that everybody's now talking about. You'll have an energy, an emotion, which is energy and motion generated by your body because we've got a fight, flight, freeze, faint, fawn response to
Mm.
everything. So you'll get a physical reaction taking place that's like, I don't like this. I don't like
Yeah,
this. I'm being
yeah.
judged. Can you sit with that and allow it? Don't try and furiously like pick up your speaking pace to compensate. Like
Mm.
literally go, he thinks I'm thick. Okay, allow that. Allow the feeling in my stomach. Allow the super horrible discomfort of being judged as thick, and carry on with the lesson. And even if you might want to change teacher eventually if he's not great. But if you go in,
Just like
no,
with his
what I think it
with his
is.
head in his hand, just shaking
Do
it.
you know why? Because otherwise you get to your 10th teacher and you realize it's you that's the do you see what I mean? It's not the teacher. Because there's a danger that you'll do this because you'll go into every single Portuguese lesson
It
with
might be the teacher.
with different teachers. But because you're
Yeah,
convinced you can't learn Portuguese, you're not going to learn Portuguese because you're convinced you're thick. Do you see what I mean? So you're creating
yeah.
this, but if you can zoom out and watch it and eventually update your ego, which you'll do through that mindfulness and also accepting that your pace of learning might be slower than you would like. And it might be super fucking slow. And it might be baby steps. And if you can accept that, one, that's like basically slaying the ego and blocking
Yeah.
down expectation, detaching from outcomes. So you're going to go to prefrontal cortex, which actually means that you're probably going to remember more. Because what's
Mm.
the worst thing for your memory? Stress. It
Mm.
only remembers the shit that we need to survive. It Everything else goes in the bin. Like
Yeah.
so, if you could go into the Portuguese lesson, yes, you're right. in person with space. But actually, even bigger space would be if I'm shit, and I carry on. And but for you, like I said, it's not even about the ceramics where it's like, well, I can kind of get over being shit at ceramics because it's just basically enhanced Play-Doh playing, like like it's professional Play-Doh play. It's not. Ceramics is an entirely beautiful skill, but
Yeah.
in my head, it's almost like my brain could do this thing, go, well, you're just not meant to make cups, end of story. So go off and try something else. But when it comes to learning a language, you genuinely want this because you
Yeah.
want to
I do.
interact with the locals and you want to do it out of respect. And it's brilliant that you want that, but accept that it'll happen when it happens, how it happens.
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because like a few things came up for me then when you was talking, because something that so like with my current Portuguese tutor on Preply, we'll be doing something, and then it'll explain a few things to me, and like it'll go like this is quite simple to understand, isn't it, Matt? And in my head, I'm thinking, no, like it's not. But at first, I used to go, yeah, yeah, sure, thinking, oh, well, I'll just get my head around it eventually. And then I was like, well, I'm actually doing myself a disservice here because he's asking like a leading question, which whereas I'm like, yeah, but it's still down to me to say, no, actually, could you explain that to me again?
Yeah.
And because again, it was like that was my ego, I guess, kind of going, yeah, yeah, I know, yeah, 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 simple, yeah.
Don't,
Next,
it's all like don't show
yeah.
vulnerability. I mean, don't show.
And but what I started doing recently, I was going, no, actually, no, I don't quite understand that.
Yeah.
And then he'll go through it with me again,
Mm.
so that came up. The second thing is, I think I kind of put this pressure on myself to learn the language, and we've got friends here who are very good at Portuguese. One of them especially so. And don't get me wrong, I could be like, yeah, but they've been here for years, la di da. But I don't want to kind of go down that road. But at the same time, it does make me reflect on my lack of ability when we're out with them. And I'm like, oh man, like there's the difference is clear,
Yeah.
like really
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah. But then, like,
Let me
no, go
finish.
on.
And and the other thing is I think now because we've been here just over a year now, there is also an expectation from some of the people that work in the places that we frequent
Yeah.
on a regular. And there's one lady who she's always having a go at me in jest, but there's truth in jest. And she's always like, come on, when you're going to order in Port when you're going to speak Portuguese. Um, and then when I went to the pharmacy a few weeks back, and what was interesting was I went to get the prescription, and there was this lovely lady behind the counter, and she was like, "Oh, like falas Portuguese," and I was like, "Oh no, not yet." And then she was like, "Oh, are you here on holiday or are you living here?" And I was like, "Oh, we live here now." But I lied, right? I said like we've only just moved here because I felt bad.
She's probably seen you around and knows you're lying.
No, no, I don't think so because I've never seen her
Oh,
before
okay.
either. Like, well, it's not like I'm in the pharmacy
No.
every
No.
three times a
That's
week.
just me.
Yeah, that's just you.
I was gonna say most things you order from the pharmacy, antihistamines and stuff like, be really hard to know it. Like you wouldn't.
No, but this was more like,
That's all like
like
I should just learn the
he was
pharmacy.
obviously like wanted to know, like, 'cause she was, when you get a prescription, they get to tell
Yeah.
you, like, oh, how often you should take it and all of that kind of stuff. But she was really lovely. She was like, oh, well, welcome to Portugal, welcome to Regil. And then she just kind of like paused and then looked to me and she was like, make sure you learn Portuguese. And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I will, thank you.
Yeah.
Obrigado, ciao. And it's like, so I do feel like there is an expectation, but rightly so. To,
Yeah, no, no,
like
no, definitely.
it's,
But what I was going to say was it's like I've wanted to learn it for ages, but this is where we were saying earlier about why the resistance. So get
Mm.
curious about it. And I think at the time my brain was just fried and I was like, I can't take any more information. I don't have enough space. And it was great. I mentioned before, I started working with a meditation teacher named Sam Miller. She's like changed my life in terms of just teaching me a lot about how did I end up here? Like at this point, why is it getting worse as I age? Why is it, possibly around hormones declining, menopause, why is that such a big thing? And how, you can definitely go down that rabbit hole of it's all menopause. So, I think I did everything possible in terms of resourcing my body and it didn't make a difference. And so I got to the point where the only thing left is the mind, And I mean, I don't, I tried yoga, more walking, not exercise, not intense exercise, and tried taking out caffeine on occasion. Like none of it makes a difference because the mind is so powerful, it is your reality. And so when I started following, you follow the work of Joe Dispenza, Bruce Lipton, all these kind of Carl Jung, they're all kind of saying that you have devised your own reality based on your experience. Your genetics also play a bit of a role, your conditioning, obviously, and genetics, obviously, from your generations before you. We've created a reality that's completely unique to us, but it's determining our experience of life. And so when you start to deconstruct all of that and understand different areas of the brain and start to put practices in to almost like regulate yourself better. And a really powerful phrase she has, I've mentioned it before on the podcast, is what's full needs emptying and what's empty needs filling. And for me, there was a lot of, I couldn't sit still. Like that was just terrifying to sit still. And I have days like it now where you're like, my backside, sit down.
Yeah.
We almost agreed to get on a sunbed and my brain just ramps up.
God.
And I'm just like,
Shut up.
but it's not nice stuff. It's like, what's this tomorrow? What time are we doing this? We need to go and buy this.
It's like, it's like I thought the plan was to come out here, read a book, chill.
Because there's resistance. So you see,
Yeah.
so this is where, but when you start watching it, rather than being in the hell of it, which it is hell, and I'd honestly say my symptoms aren't as bad as many people that suffer with chronic illness, but the mental side of it, mental and emotional side of it, because there's nothing but kind of like fear circulating, which you won't allow into your psyche. So you convert everything into anxiety, even the anger or the resentment at everything or the sadness, you turn most of it into anxiety, which is not an emotion. It is a state that we create to distract us from what we don't want to feel. But what's really interesting is once we start to allow emotions in and understand, don't be scared when your stomach, is like gurgling away with fear. We allow it, we understand it. But when we start to watch the mind that's guiding that stomach or guiding that heart, or that immune system, which is overreacting to everything, when we start to watch that mind, we can see that actually most of it is fictional, it's created by us. And also this belief that we are so in control of everything. So again, the work of Michael Singer became really powerful to me, where he was like, surrender, that voice in your head, if you listen to it and act and react to it all the time, you're in like a living hell. Whereas if you kind of watch it and then just have practices like meditation, some people use humming, singing, you're not trying to distract from it, you're not trying to quieten it, you kind of observe it, watch it, and then you will do some regulating, or some people call it a safety signal back. So what I might do is watch my mind, go into it. So suddenly I'm in the thought and I'm going, and then you've got to do this, you've got to do this, you haven't done that. This person thinks you're a piece of shit. You are a piece of shit. Did you know you're a piece of shit? Like it literally just does that. And it's done that for so long. And I see all my clients do it. They do it usually verbally to me, so I can watch it tumble, with them. And then you actually zoom out and go, no, watch you having that thought and do it again. And you have to do it. I must, like, in one meditation, maybe I do it 100 times. In a day, maybe 1,000 times. It's so hard. And it's literally like present, present, present. Watch you having the thought, watch you having the thought. And then eventually it gets easier. Everyone says it gets easier and easier. It almost becomes, originally when you first start it, it's exhausting. So you have to do lots of yoga nidras and resting and not so much socializing, because when you're socializing, that's when you're in it all the time.
Yeah.
So it's really good to do the socializing less frequently, so you can watch yourself go into a social situation and all the stories you create about it, watch yourself in a social situation, and then watch the social anxiety after a situation, which I said to you, I'll go, I shouldn't have said that. I think that person was offended. Did I take enough chocolates? Did anyone miss out? Did people like the chocolates? I think the chocolates were shit. They all thought it was shit, but no one wanted to tell me because they feel sorry for me. Like that's how social anxiety works. But it's your reality if you don't step back and watch it and see it. And then eventually what you can start to do is it's almost like it becomes accidental that you've slipped into thought, like as in into the story. So now you can pull back quite a lot, and eventually you can start to, regulate yourself really well. So I would, for example, use nature a lot. So bird song. So if I really can't deal with the amount of chaos going on in my mind, I would pull back and listen to bird song.
Yeah.
or I'd use like really nice music, film scores, or just go and walk. So maybe some movement is needed. Name's just stretching and so there are different ways that you can get like a safety signal back. Do you see what I mean? But we almost have to explore it and see it and become aware and become curious to then change it. And when we're doing that kind of piece, it's really good to try to like minimize your life a little bit. So when you're thinking about your social schedule, I'm not saying, because some people I work with are like doing nothing, they're just hiding out at home now because there's so much fear and anxiety like circulating around them, and they've created this is all, I'm not saying that there isn't terrible things happening to them, there is,
Mm.
but again, part of the Michael Singer, his second book, Surrender Experiment, is he has some really awful things happen to him, and he's just like, surrender. I am where I am. I'm where I'm meant to be. Of course, he's put things in place, and his is like basically he's been threatened with imprisonment over something he didn't do. So he gets the right lawyer, da da da. But outside of that, he just meditate, surrender, believe that what's going to happen is meant to happen. And he's taught meditation in prisons for years. Do you see what I mean? So
Mm.
he's been a good person. And it was actually that piece of information that got a lot of lawyers going, there's no way this guy did this. Do you know what I mean? Because he's given his life to meditation and
Yeah,
teaching
yeah.
and like sacrificed so much. And not a single person can give him a bad, you know, like no one says a bad word about him. So it was basically he was set up and framed in a work capacity.
Yeah.
So if you, and I know that my dad, what's really interesting, would never ever be able to surrender in that situation. He would have a heart
No.
attack fighting the case,
Yeah, yeah.
like because his way at work, we've talked a lot about this, and if I get in a pickle in work situations or working for the corporates and stuff, he comes to my defense and he's almost like, let me come to this meeting with you because I will tell them what they,
Yeah.
I see him and I'm like, Dad, is that how you were in meetings? He's like, yeah, because no one was going to do me over, nobody. And it came from being bullied as a kid. And he says that I was bullied as a kid for 2 years solid, and I will never let anyone do that to me again. And so
Mm.
he's like, he goes on the attack. And it's interesting because when I also did some work for with a neuroscientist where we were doing corporate health and nutrition, and he would do the talk on behavior in the boardroom and I would do nutrition. And he said in the boardroom and often in meetings, we go into like amygdala area of the brain. We're very much like our agenda, our thoughts, our beliefs, and everyone's doing it. So you'll never get an agreement in a boardroom. It's really hard because
Yeah, yeah.
everyone's gone so fiercely on the attack or the defense that there's not really kind of that. I guess everyone could do with doing a opening up with a meditation, maybe a bit of ecstatic dance, and then some doodling, and then go, any thoughts? Where are we all at? Like light some incense,
It's not bad shout, to be
or get it,
fair.
or get in a lavender bath together, and we'll be like, okay,
Okay,
what
now you're getting weird.
the...
But like I was just thinking, like, like we often list off all these things that like, oh, I need to be doing this, I should be doing that. And it's like that kind of just adds to the pressure that's already on you, right? Like, there's me going, I need to learn Portuguese, I should learn
Yeah,
Portuguese. But at the same time, I'm trying to run a business and trying to work on my organizational skills and whatnot. Because the reality is like, we must make time for things that are important to us, right? And of course, the obvious ones, family, friends, of course, but then like stuff that's just for you as well, like the creative stuff, the hobbies, the exercise, you know, the list goes on. Like it's really important that we make time for those things.
like
But
this is kind of relevant to what you just said. So sorry to interrupt
well,
you.
if it's only kind of relevant, I'm not interested.
It's like just to give you this thing of thinking that you own the situation where you're saying like it's important, I would like to learn Portuguese, it's important, but work pressures, business, blah blah blah. Plus where we are in Portugal, we're helping my mum and dad with the property, so there's a lot of like gardening and all this stuff that we're
Mm.
trying to do as well, and I mean hours and hours of it, isn't there? So but just to kind of give you an inkling, how do you know you're so convinced that you don't have time for Portuguese, you would like time. But how do you know that learning Portuguese would connect you in some way to someone? This is just a silly idea, but maybe your Portuguese teacher also has another client who wants a personal trainer and connects you. And this other client happens to be a multimillionaire who wants to set up a personal training app with programming ability that is amazing, which is something that you've said there's no good apps for this. Do you see what I mean? And you're connected through your Portuguese teacher, and suddenly you've got a multimillionaire like, I've got all this money, Matt, and I'd like to create a training app. And I'm like, there's all the money. Do you see what I mean? And there's your dream, that your problem solved by a dream that you didn't. Do you see what I mean? I'm trying to say that we assume we shouldn't do something because we know the outcomes in every sense, and we don't. And if you feel, I think this is where, if you have taken a bit of time out, done some mindfulness, sat with yourself, and you're feeling this strong call to learn Portuguese, then it's going to bring opportunities to you. So you should make time for the
Mm.
Portuguese and see it as part of your responsibility that week.
Yeah.
However, where this gets carried away is if you're also pulled in 10 different directions by obligations that you absolutely cannot change at this point in time. So I
Yeah.
think there are some choices that we can make, but we don't see them as choices. So you kind of go, I've got no choice. We're so busy with the business. But what if this would change your business? Do you see what I mean? Is all I'm
Yeah. Yeah.
and so
There's always the power of like the kind of knock-on effect, right? In terms of like, this conversation could lead
yeah, yeah, yeah.
to that connection. That connection could lead to like, because how many times has that happened to us anyway?
All the time. That's so
Like,
many times.
yeah, and but I think what
We
what
wouldn't
what
even have the book deal if we hadn't persuaded the mortgage advisor. Do you
yeah,
remember?
God, yeah.
So we
So
wouldn't have had a home
you
if
wouldn't have
we,
had it, yeah, wouldn't
yeah,
have
that
got our
was it.
first home, yeah.
Had our mortgage advisor not been interested in nutrition, because at that point we just had paid out this huge amount to get a book printed, and so with the business, he was like, "How are you going to make money?" And we were like, "We don't know. We haven't sold a single book yet, but
But we're gonna.
we're gonna." And like he managed to get it past. Do you remember the risk?
Well,
I think
we got refused originally,
the
and
brokers. That was it. He got through.
he fought our corner, didn't he? He
Yeah,
was like, no, no, these guys could, and we were like, wow, like what a legend. Um, yeah,
and it got to special case and approval and stuff. Yeah. So what I'm saying is like sometimes it's nice to let go of that. If of that, I guess that like limiting belief that you've put in place, or that controlling belief, or that kind of discipline. But sorry, I've interrupted you, so you carry on your bit because I had one other point.
yeah. So thank you, because I was starting to forget my point then. I was literally thinking like, where was I going with this? But then I just remembered it just before you said that. So this is good timing. So my point is like, because this is the work I do with my clients. It's like, they have all these things that they feel that they should do, need to do, but then get stressed because they can't for X, Y, and Z reason. And don't get me wrong, some reasons are valid, but generally only to a degree. And similar to what's going on with me, I struggle to have the headspace more than anything. I don't believe in this don't have time, because I think we all have time. But I think the reality is there's just so much going on up top that it's more just a sheer lack of headspace that you can't even fathom, like doing a Portuguese lesson right now, or going to the gym, or
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Because
Yeah,
your brain is just like, oh,
yeah,
and if anything, you just want to sit down and take a moment or whatever. Like,
yeah,
and so for me, if I zoom out, I'm like, right, okay, it is important to me to learn Portuguese. I want to learn Portuguese. It's not an obligation. But in order for me to do this in a productive and more importantly, enjoyable way, I need to be of a certain frame of mind to achieve that. I need to be more organized with my time. I need to be more productive, don't get distracted so easily, so that's the work that I need to do in order to create that headspace for that
yeah,
particular thing.
yeah, yeah,
And like I said, it can be your Portuguese lesson, it could be going to the gym, it can be catching up with a friend, it can be your creative activity of choice. It's something that you want to do, something that's important to you. It's not an obligation, it's not just a tick in a box. It's something that is important to you. And I think like that's a big part of what we do with people. And ironically, like in this case, I need to, I've identified that I need to do this within myself.
yeah, yeah,
Is like, okay, how can we adapt all the other stuff that's going on to make room for this? because the reality is like you're busy at work. Okay, cool. Well, you need to work. You can't knock that on the head. But what can we do to make that a little
more
bit?
productive.
Yeah, do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
And
Because
it's
I also ideally you want to be your obligatory stuff you want to be super productive with to get it achieved in the shortest time possible to allow time to have the freedom to enjoy an experience.
mm,
And when you're doing the enjoying and experiencing, you're not on your phone thinking you should be somewhere else or looking at the next thing. You're fully in that moment. And that was
yeah,
the second thing that I always did was I did plan nice things, but when I was in them, it was kind of like I wasn't really experiencing it. My brain was still really busy, and I was kind of like, yeah, but the next thing is this, and the next thing is
yeah,
this, like fast forwarding. And it got to a point where I remember questioning, like, I can't feel joy. I just can't feel it anymore. I don't feel anything. And this is when I realized I was probably getting what you might say like disembodied or like some degree of disassociation because the brain was just so powerful and
yeah,
loud and busy. And there was just so many events that happen. I think as well, like the more you've had like kind of difficult traumatic experiences just almost stack. And, everyone's really different. But I think I look at our situation, I think going into running a business together, we didn't mean to first of all. So it was
yeah.
almost like someone just, when someone pushes you into a pool versus you deciding to jump into a pool. They're very different
It just
experiences.
happened, didn't it?
Yeah, it just happened. But suddenly I'm plunged into this whole world of like, kind of everything from, finances to kind of business insurance and business plans and strategies. And then we have mentors coming in telling us all this stuff. And I think I lost agency over the whole thing, which is mad because you're self-employed. And that's when for a long time I started to go, I need to be employed because I can't deal with this amount of things I need to do. You need to be about 10 different professions to run an online business now. And when you kind of scale back, like when I did go and get jobs, yeah, that was worse because then I had no agency. And that's when I realized I'm like, oh, and I did start to think I'm screwed because self-employed is really hard because of all these responsibilities. But being employed, you have no agency and you're not listened to, and you could be dropped. Like there was so many rounds of redundancies in this company I was in. I was like, God, you could be ditched any minute, and that's such a hit on the self-esteem. But then the work you're doing isn't that valuable either. So it's like a lose-lose situation. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think it all of it was really, really beneficial because what I actually needed was to step back to have some space and get my agency back and go, you know what you love and what you want to do and how you want to do it, and start to trust that a little bit more. And if it feels like, yes, there'll be elements of running a business now, like we never are that keen on, I guess, sometimes sitting on camera and stuff. It's got easier, you know what I
Mm,
mean? But if it wasn't your thing in the beginning, it takes a bit of time to get used to. But if you're meant to do it, eventually it will feel fine. So, and I say this because I think there's also a trend on social media at the moment that has recognized that everyone feels overwhelmed and is terrified of the amount of things they should be doing and they're not doing in their health and all this stuff. But I think there's now an algorithm and a kind of a section of content that's like, oh, don't worry if your whole life is a shit show and you're doing nothing and you just sat on the sofa with a bottle of wine and a load of chocolate and you're Netflixing it. Like, that's what 40 is. Or don't worry, and it is okay, and it is okay to fuck up, and it is okay. And it is, but not if it's your whole life is just this and your health is suffering for it. And I don't mean that it's not okay, but what I'm saying is it's it is important that you start addressing it and
mm,
bringing some like time to this to be able to rebalance the situation. Like no one should be judged for what they're doing. That's really important. That's no one's going to show up if they're going to be judged. You will
mm,
just hide on the comfort cave of comfort food and Netflix and not do anything. And you just eventually, as I said, I've got clients who don't leave the house now because it's just there's they can't be judged or their minds are too chaotic. There's like some, and I've never seen this before. This is kind of evolving over time, but I understand it having come here when it was first. I'd cleared the space, as in took some time off work, moved to Portugal, blue sky, sat in nature, and the noise in my mind just went like a
yeah, yeah.
tsunami came in. I was like, oh my God, this is why I work so hard. This is why I run so much. This is why I'm always cleaning. Because I don't want to listen to this. It's too much. Like, so eventually you balance back. And I reduced what are called process addictions and like avoidance tactics
Mhm.
very, very slowly, and got spent more time in the silence. And I was lucky, had a couple more rounds of COVID, got so sick that I was like, I can't do this anymore. Like I can't have these overriding activities coming in, and I've got to start to face, what if you are going to get wiped out by long COVID? What if, like, make friends with that, like, sit in it, face it. And that's when I've said to you, I think sometimes just sitting in our fears is the most powerful thing we can do, because we've convinced ourselves it will be the end of us, but actually it could be the making of us. And so we only know it if we sit in the fear. And what we're fearing may never happen anyway. I would reckon 9 times out of 10 it won't happen. We've invented it. But we can't keep running from the things that we don't want to feel. We have to start
Mm.
spending time in it. And as I've said, the more time you do with stillness, the more time you see ego and this conscious part of our mind that's constantly fighting, doing, obsessed.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like it's like, we often talk about this, don't we, in terms of like leaning into the discomfort of things instead of just being just like, okay, distraction, avoidance. And sometimes like that discomfort comes with like just sitting with the feeling. It's not an actual, it's not necessarily doing, like a hard workout or staying disciplined with your diet. It's like a feeling comes up and you go, oh, do you know what? I'm going to actually just sit with this now. I'm going to feel it. I'm not going to seek a distraction to,
Yeah, just for a minute is
yeah,
powerful. And
yeah.
don't see it as like because some people try and white knuckle it, and you can end up in you can give yourself like full on like panic sensations. But there's really simple ways to start. Like when you go to open that bag of crisps that you super want, that you've thought about all week long, or the bottle of
Mm,
wine, or whatever it is, like sit with the bottle of wine for 1 minute and look at it. What does not having the wine bring to you? Like,
mm.
oh, I'd have to sit in this life now without this.
This thing.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, so what is it in this life now that you don't like? And that's how it kind of works. And for a lot of people, they'll say to me, it's like, I'm bored, or I can't settle, I can't
Mm,
quiet my mind, I can't relax. When I have that, I can relax. And I often said, like, give me a one glass of wine, I become probably the version of myself I'm supposed to be. But the mindfulness work is this, it has the same effect eventually. It just takes longer, but it it's also so preventative, because it's also, look at disease and everything. Do you see what I mean?
yeah.
It's preventative. But like you, it'd be really great to do something like, I've said this to you, like, could you do, I mean, you would have to do months not going to the gym and see what that brought for you.
Yeah.
Not that it's an addiction, but do you know what I mean?
It
Like
ain't gonna happen.
that, but that would be really powerful. So that is a really strong process addiction in a way. So process addiction is different to addiction in that it's a process that you repeat, and it's the why that's really important. And the thing is with healthy stuff is we can argue, yeah, but longevity, yeah, but health, yeah, but heart disease. But we've seen people in our industry this year
Mm,
who we really respected and were very amazing at what they did, knowledgeable, spiritual, great. Literally went out like a robin, didn't they?
mm.
Three, I know three, and I was like, wow, and I know like it can happen to any of us. We're not like, none of this guarantees anything.
No, no.
So making it your life doesn't make any sense. And I know people where this is their entire life, as in trying to be fit, trying to be healthy, trying to be slimmer, trying to be stronger, trying to live longer is their life. And you're like, but you're not actually living your life.
Yeah.
And then I think there are elements to which we should revisit the healthy things and see, do we need more flexibility and adaptability with them? And for you, I think what would be interesting is to, if you didn't strength train, what would be under that? Like, I would struggle the same. Like if I was to have to be, if you put me in bed for a week, I think I'd climb the walls. So what is
Yeah.
it that,
But I don't know. I don't know that we're on the same page with this.
no, no, I'm not saying that we should, but underlying that is where your worst fears are.
No, no, yeah, I understand what you're saying.
So I'm not suggesting
What
anyone
what
do it,
what
but
what I'm saying is like, because you mentioned this to me before, like, and I feel like I'm in a very good place with my training
yeah, yeah.
compared to how I used to be.
No, 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 you definitely are.
Like it used to be that I would freak out
Yeah,
if
yeah, yeah,
something came up and I couldn't get to the gym, couldn't follow my routine,
yeah, yeah,
and I was very like anal about
yeah,
it, like, but in an unhealthy way.
yeah,
Like it wasn't good. It was an obligation. I enjoyed it to a degree, but that had long been like overshadowed by this kind of
yeah,
like this pressure. Whereas now, I can skip a workout. I can go days without training,
Yeah.
and
No, no, I'm not saying that you do it and that you are super, super balanced more than me. Like I think my process addictions are still quite strong. Like I can't let the house be messy. Like I just cannot, and I cannot sit still. And I struggle when I've registered an email I didn't reply to. It could be 9 o'clock at night, and I still have this vulnerability to going back and answering it because for me, I'm like the pe person will think I didn't care.
y-
And so, sorry, so it's still, that's all ego identity and stuff. But what I'm saying about you is like, if you wanted to go on a journey, like a journey for me would be force yourself to stay in bed for a week, force yourself. And what comes up, and for you, a journey would be don't train for 3 months.
are you more referring it to like, let's say I did stop training, right? And I lost size.
Yeah.
I didn't have the physical presence that I do
Yeah,
now.
yeah,
Of an absolute stud. I'm joking.
yeah.
No,
Or the strength, the capacity, like
yeah,
so you weren't perceived as
yeah. So,
strong and
like, is that more what you're getting at? Like, if how would I feel if people would start to say, like, oh, you've got smaller, or,
it's
is
all of it.
it?
And how would you feel? Because
Yeah.
your identity is tied in with like, and because you find it important, you believe functional strength, and you often say this, the ability to save let's say sorry, mine and Hamish's life is so important to you. You often say I was born in the wrong era because if it was my job to guard the tribe right now, I'd be smashing it. Like, whereas
Yeah.
give me an iPhone and I want to smash the iPhone. So
Um,
it's like that's really important to you, which means that there's a fear underlying it. So I'm not saying it's unhealthy, but I'm saying your real deepest subconscious, below conscious, you don't even know they exist fears is below it. And the way that you'd probably find it out is to not have the strength and the size that you naturally have now as part of your identity and what's underneath it.
mm,
And what's really interesting is when you do look at some of the, again, the work of like Gabor Mate or even like Body Keeps the Score, is they'll often say that some of this might have happened in utero in early years of our life that we didn't have the right attachments or the necessary attachments to feel safe. And so something in our psyche registered that there was a way that we could find safety. And that might have come through exercise or being a certain physique or being a certain academic status,
mm,
being a certain person in social situations. And so we've become that. And so we can't see it because it's just us. Do you see what I mean? But when that is stripped away, so say in a social situation, you're accused or you have a fallout, which is not you, you're accused of lying or I don't know, cheating or something. It's like horror of horrors, and you can't deal with it. Whereas somebody who had a lot of um, kind of like nurturing attachments when they were young and vulnerable, and then had a very regulating nervous system, they can go out and offend people and not really bother. They can be overweight, underweight, not really. They're normally just eating to need because there's no
mm,
story around food and
yeah.
exercise and physique. Do you see what I mean? That's where you get these people who go, oh, I just forgot to eat, and genuinely did forget to eat. And I might go to the gym. No, I quite like walking, or they're so they feel they appear quite genuine. And so what I'm saying is, if that's not you, never ever give yourself any grief about it. Be curious. And the way that we could be curious is like, why did I hated the 7 day fast so much that we did. And I was like, even if this I never got on board with this could cure your gastritis. I was just like, I hate it. Like I hate it. I hate it. I hate it. I hate having no food, no nice drinks. I hate having no energy. And you could argue, well, that's absolutely fine. But if you look at YouTube, some people absolutely sail through 7 day
Mm.
fasts and they're like, amazing, amazing, amazing. So I
That's
was like,
fine as
why am
me,
I
pretty
so
much. Yeah.
attached to all this stuff for comfort? And it is comfort. It was like, because you don't want to feel something. So I gave myself loads of shit after that because I was like, maybe you're addicted, like even addicted to chamomile tea because I was like, just something that tastes like I really
Yeah.
needed something that tasted of something, not just water. And so I was like, maybe I'm just addicted to everything. Like,
But just just like backpedaling a little bit, like, because I was just thinking, do you remember when you were like, we've shared this before, like you were obsessed with exercise. You
yeah,
you
yeah.
also had a really unhealthy relationship with it, became very excessive, and you were pushing through injuries. Like we've all been there. And it wasn't until like your body was genuinely like, okay, no more. And your knee was screwed and you couldn't even walk up and down stairs without pain, let alone
Mm,
run. And like you went through a really difficult time with that,
mm,
but it kind of forced your hand a little
Yeah,
bit.
yeah, yeah. Broke the addiction in a way.
Yeah, and then you ended up like uh, buggering your ankle and couldn't walk again, but this time for like a different reason. And then when you could get back to exercise, like you were just walking and doing a bit of yoga, and you were really really happy with that. But then that was the time when everyone was like going, "Oh my God, Keris, you look amazing! Like, what are you doing right now? Like, I want to know your secret." And you were like, "I'm doing the least I've ever done."
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, like I'm walking and doing a bit of yoga, and that's it. And it's like, well, what I'm trying to say is like you got there through pain. You know what I mean? Like you kind of like you had
I
to,
got there because again, my body keeps the score. It calls
yeah.
time on it all the time.
And
Yeah.
and I think that's the difference is that like for me right now, I train because I can and I enjoy it, and
Yeah.
it's most definitely part of my identity for sure. Would I be frustrated if I couldn't train for one reason or another, such as when I had my hernia operation, nothing for 8 weeks? But that was actually more enjoyable than I thought because I think it was almost like, well, I don't have a choice.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
just what I
No,
need to
no
do.
pressure.
And
Yeah.
I just embraced it and I did lots of walking, adapting my nutrition, etc., etc.
Guess it's also like, why did you need permission to try all that? Do you know what I mean? Is it
Yeah.
like, yeah.
But I also remember a time, and I vividly remember this, when I was with my ex-girlfriend and I was driving, we were driving, and I was so regimented. And this was when I was like very much kind of like in my obsessed training phase, obsessed with my nutrition, had to eat every 3 hours. And if I didn't, like I would freak out. And she was running late, and I was like, we're in the car, and I was like, look, have you seen the time? Like, I should have been eating half an hour ago. Like, it's going to be another half an hour till we get to wherever. I need to eat. I need to eat. Not healthy at all.
No.
But at the time, it was like, this is what I have to do. This is what I must do. Whereas now, I can eat 3 meals a day, 4 meals a day, 1 meal, 2 meal. I can go hours and hours without food. Doesn't even phase me. I don't even think about how many meals have I had? Am I losing
You
muscle?
got the
How
flexibility.
much protein have I had? You know what I mean? And like, and the same goes with my training.
Mm.
Like I follow a structure, of course I do. And I have like an area of focus with my training at the moment, but I'm not kind of like so attached to it anymore. Because for me, it's more like I train. I'm not what am I doing? I'm not playing professional sport. I'm not, you know, trying to qualify for the Olympics and anything. Like for the best part, like I train because I enjoy it. I like pushing my body.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I'd be lying if I said I didn't like look in a certain way as well.
Yeah,
But anyone who's known me has known that like, my physique's not been too dissimilar for the last 2 decades. Do you know what I mean? Like, would
yeah.
you say my physique's that
No,
different to when we?
it's the same. I think it's always the why. Like I think that's so, and the why is important and the flexibility is important, but you don't want to go too far in either direction. So
No,
what I'm saying is there's a lot of, like I said,
100%.
social media content that's like be kind to yourself, be kind to yourself, but then do understand this is again a bit of the ego, which I think I mentioned before that I didn't understand, which is that ego wants to keep you exactly where you are. It will resist change like fiercely. And
Mm,
ego isn't always this kind of self-centered confidence, like me thing. I mean, ego is me, but that can actually be that it's more like keep repeating the self-sabotaging habit over and
mm,
over again. Keep thinking about others' needs. It's the social mask for society. It's a fake ID that you've created, you've attached to it. So it's involved in everything from body image to everyone's perception of you to caregiving to like your relationship, your status at work, your status within a family, amongst your siblings. A great phrase I heard the other day, I'd never heard this before, is sibling chess, which is where it's very common that as siblings you have this, you play a game of chess all the time. It's always
yeah,
one-upmanship,
yeah,
but it's very so often people don't even realize it's happening. And I really liked it because you think it's only happening in your family because you look around and you see siblings are normally like, oh, me and my sister, me and my brother, whatever. Do you see? You obviously
yeah,
you're an
yeah,
only child, you don't have this, but actually often there's a lot of sibling chess going on, and it's funny because I didn't want to believe that, but I look back and I was like, oh yeah, there is kind of around like houses, cars, kids, partners, wages,
Yeah.
job roles, but a lot of it is also relation to parents and attention with parents and parents' perception of you and who's the favorite and who's and how the parents feedback on what the other siblings doing and stuff. And if you're in ego mode, all of that is your life. It's so important. It's your existence. If you go into higher self, it is. Do you see what I mean? And that's it. And so you can start to read nasty emails, text messages. You can scroll if you want to. It just is. There's so and so with so and so doing that. And it's like, take
Mm.
away all the meaning of everything. It's a word, it's a bank statement. It doesn't define you. It might not be ideal right now. Do you know what I mean? I'm just thinking of the bank statement. It might not be ideal, but the stress that we will have over that is bigger than the actual number itself
Mm.
often. So if we can rise above it, we can probably find answers and solutions by responding rather than reacting. But if we react, we will usually reinforce the status quo because we
Mm.
act from ego, keep us exactly where we are. If you're broke, you'll be broke. If you're jealous, you'll be jealous. If you hate
Yeah.
your body, you'll keep hating your body.
I think that's been a big part of our journey as well. It's like, because I think often when you are like, like you say, like, let's say you see something like, oh, bank balance, well, that's not where I want it to be. Comparison to your siblings, to the lives that people are living on social
Well, yeah, the,
media.
the highlight reel you're seeing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like and like something that a conversation that comes up a lot for us sometimes is like, I'm turning 40 this year. You're 30,
I know.
45.
Yeah, 30, 30.
35, yes, 35. To
35,
be fair, everyone does think you're younger than me.
yeah.
That hard life, I told you. Like you
That
then
wouldn't work if everyone thinks you're older than you are. That's not a compliment.
no, no, but no, but I'm saying no, but people
Everyone
people
thinks,
people think you're younger than me,
yeah,
don't
no.
they?
Everyone thinks you're
Yeah.
55 and I'm 50.
Well, do you know what's weird? I used to I think I've been kidding myself, right? Because I used to think I look younger than I am. And when I was a bit younger, and like let's say more like maybe mid 30s, early 30s, and because I always used to do this thing, so I said, "Oh, how old are you?" I go, "How old do you think I am?" And then people would go, "Oh, like 26, 27." Like that's when I was like a bit younger. But now I'm like 39, about to go 40. And someone like say, "Oh, how old are you?" And I'm like, "How old do you think I am?" And more often than not, they'll say like 38, 39, like late
Oh,
30s. And
really?
I'm like, "Oh, you fucker." I,
But this is a really good exercise to
I
do.
genuinely don't care, but it's just
This is a
as an
really but
observation.
this is a really good exercise to do. I've only tried it a couple of times, and I actually just invented this because if you do kind of go to like image, and our industry is so image based, isn't
Mm,
it? Like, and I one of my fears has always been like, if this happened to me or that happened to me, I couldn't train or whatever, would anyone listen to me? If I didn't look like this, but would anyone listen to me? And so I've started to just look in the mirror and just look at yourself, and you kind of watch the um so watch your small self, analyze it and go,
mm.
well, there's a wrinkle. Well, look at that. There's a random hair growing out your chin. You look a bit fat today. Look at that. You've lost tone here. Da, da, da. And it's like, just watch it. Just watch it
Yeah,
for ages. And if you can, like, take off all your clothes and just stare at yourself in the mirror, and then go to
I
like
do
a,
that quite a lot, to be
you do, you do the other day.
fair.
If you can.
Not in that way though, just to be clear.
I don't know what way you're doing it in, but I've seen you do it. But go to your higher self and just look at everything and neutrally,
Mm.
objectively, no comment. Like
Well,
just look at it, just look at it, just look at it. And then what you'll find is you get back in the car, and this is what I always used to do, look down at my legs and go,
back in the car.
so like
I've
leave the house.
just gone from being naked.
Sorry.
Where now I'm getting back in the car. Where was I?
What I meant is like I've done this and then got in the car to go somewhere and immediately like glanced in the mirror
Mm.
or looked down at my thighs and started to criticize. So I'd glance in the mirror to look behind and go, God, your eyes look tired. And then I've like gone to change gear and go, gosh, like your legs look awful today. Look at all
Yeah.
do you know what I mean? And it's so much. But if you can, like practice that mirror exercise because that's just exposure. And the more you're exposing yourself to something neutrally, it's like we could do it with a spider if we wanted to, the
Well,
less you'll start to create a
just
story.
in my defense, before anyone starts thinking I'm just some uh what's the word?
Narcissist.
Yeah. It's more that I must say, like in recent times, and maybe even say like the last year or two, like I've started to notice like changes in my appearance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like I like little things like I've started to notice like grays coming through my beard. Like recently I found like my first grey body hair. Seen that? Hey, it's a whopper as well, isn't it?
I think everyone listening is going,
Um
Tell us how hard this is for you, Liam
no,
Hemsworth lookalike.
oh
Tell us how
whatever.
hard that was.
Chris Hemsworth.
Chris Hemsworth.
No disrespect to Liam, but
I know,
um
but we're like, tell us how that one grey hair must be
no, hear
really
me out.
difficult for
Don't
you.
don't 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 belittle me.
No, but with your model good looks, tell us.
Oh, whatever. Now you're making me blush. But thank you. No, but I do like and wrinkles like around my eyes here. And then I saw a thing on Instagram the other day. Apparently, like see this bit, just the skin just above below your eyebrows, but not your eyelids.
Yeah,
The bit between your eyelids and your
yeah,
eyebrows.
yeah.
Can't remember the name of them now. But apparently, like as you age, like these start to drop. And I was like, shit, I think I'm starting to notice that. And to be clear, I'm not bothered. I'm not because I'm one of those people that I just
You
embrace.
remind me of a Mickey Flanagan sketch where he says,
You
"No one
imagine?
tells you about your testicles dropping
Oh yeah.
and swinging around your knees.
Like,
No one tells you
but
that bit."
I've always been, I've always just been like, you just embrace aging, just embrace aging. But
If you can see yourself,
yeah,
my
yeah,
lids gone
yeah,
so
yeah,
far.
yeah. It's come so far down. I can't see. I can't
That would
see.
be heaven to be fair. Like, I think I
But
still look like Chris
but
Hemsworth.
yeah,
I
so
can't
I've been
see.
told. But yeah, but I have started to notice like these like changes.
Yeah.
And also since I've been here, I've like bloody been bitten by a dog, slashed my leg open with
So what
broken
when you're
glass.
naked, what are you looking at?
So like just look at well, to be fair, I'm often naked around the
Yeah, you
house
are.
anyway. So it was not like I specifically get naked to stare in the mirror. I
No.
just happen to be naked when looking in the mirror.
Yeah.
And it's like, I don't know, you just start to like look at things. And when you get a tan, your scars don't tan.
So you
So they
can.
stand out more. And
Oh.
you kind of like look and you're like, bloody hell, like you just like, I don't know. Anyway,
This is reminding me of a film, like
I feel like we should edit this bit out.
No.
Um, because yeah,
It's
I
staying.
feel like it's not coming across how
No,
I intended.
but I
And
think
you ain't helping.
it's a good thing to do what you're doing. I think it's like you're observing your body and how it's changing and how it's aging. But that's what I'm saying about there has to be a level of acceptance. And I think what most people do is that observation piece you're doing, everyone's doing it,
Hmm.
but then what everyone will do is resist it and try and find a solution to stop it. And that can become a full-time job or damaging to our health eventually. Because again, people, and I'm not judging anyone if you want to do the Botox, the surgery, and those sorts of
Could
things.
you get an eyebrow lift?
And maybe there will be things that we end up doing, I don't know. But I think for a lot of it, it's kind of like you're 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 giving into that judgment in a way. That judgment has become more important than your health. Like that's I guess, the frightening thing. And I don't know if we'll get there, like as in age very gracefully, naturally, and not want to have some of that stuff. Like,
No, but I mean, like, it's funny, isn't it? Because it's like I said, it genuinely, I don't look at it and go, it is more of a like, oh, I've not noticed that before. And it's normally just followed up with like, what, it's to be expected.
yeah,
I'm about to turn 40,
yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
older, like, and equally, like, there's nothing I can do about it, right? Like, I'm not going to go down the route of like buying fancy creams or having any. I mean, I
Would
will
you
never have Botox or
would you dye the chest hair then if you didn't want
no,
to? I'm joking.
I won't do a thing.
Here's a really good example, and then we will finish. But I actually had this chat with my mum because she's had over 10 years of she had this like botched um tooth operation, and it left her with like misfiring nerves. So she had a
Mm,
toothache. She's had to have loads of medications. Like it's been a really difficult experience for her. And the other day she said, I'm thinking of getting my teeth whitened. You can imagine my response to that.
yeah.
I was like, so you're going to put, because it's really harsh on the enamel, it basically makes them very sensitive. So like, after all that you've been through, you're going to put bleach on your teeth to make them super sensitive. And then she was like, well, no, there's new treatments now, and this is where everyone can come to their
Oh yeah.
bias
Oh
around it.
yeah.
I mean, it's the same with the weight loss injections and other things. It's all like, yeah, but now it's safer because X, Y, Z. I get it. Like, I totally get it. But I said to her, my question is, why do you need whiter teeth?
Why?
Like, that's my biggest
Yeah,
question.
you might as well good
Yeah,
teeth.
I was like, who's commenting on your teeth? What do whiter teeth mean to you? Do they improve your quality of life? Is the sunset brighter? does the bird song more beautiful? Is the bird song more beautiful? Do you know what I mean? I'm like, in your 70s, like, I don't know. At any age, it should be the case, but definitely in your 70s, why would you do something that might have a risk associated
Mm.
with more pain? Or, and she was like, oh, she always said, like, you're not going to let me, are you? And I was like, that's crazy. That, like, but I was like, no, just tell me what it brings to your life,
Mm.
because I don't understand why you would risk having your health compromised after having it compromised. I get teeth whitening and I'm tempted, you know what I mean? And I'm trying to sometimes bicarb here the water's like, I think the water has a lot of calcium in it, it stains
You
teeth
know
and
what will whiten your teeth? Not that I'm saying you
not
need
no
to, by the
coffee.
way.
Yeah,
No
no
coffee.
coffee. Yeah, yeah.
When I cut out coffee
Looks
a
so
while
much
ago,
better.
the amount of people that said to me, "Have you whitened your teeth?" I said, "No." And they were like, "Yes, you have." I was like, "Honestly, I haven't. I just am not drinking coffee."
Yeah.
But
Do you know what started the
I'd
convo?
rather. I think I've said before. I'd rather a slight tinge to my teeth
Yeah.
than,
Don't have coffee in my
than
life.
give up coffee.
Well, what started the convo was she went to see a neighbor who was drinking coffee through a metal straw.
Oh, don't.
And so that's when that's what started it. And then so it's again, it's one of those things where other people do it, and then you don't look
There's only
like
one
you're
thing
up to
that should be
standard.
drunk through a straw, and that's milkshake. Anything else, it's
It
just
really
it
affects the taste of
ain't
it
the same.
because it hits the back of your throat rather than
Yeah.
your tongue. So you don't enjoy the drink the same.
No, coffee through a straw. No, I'd rather not bother.
A metal straw as
Yeah.
well. I was
Well,
thinking a hot drink through a metal straw,
wait,
that would
don't
be
get it.
like, yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway, random ending there,
Anyway,
but
yeah.
that hopefully, if you were thinking of getting your teeth whitened, we're not judging. I'm just saying, like,
Of
be
course not.
prepared
Yeah.
for all outcomes, which could be super sensitive,
Mm.
painful teeth. And then was it worth it? That's all. You just got to, we always say this, be prepared for all outcomes, accept all outcomes. And if you're not prepared to, we've been saying this a lot with decisions recently, haven't we? We've been sat down and going, right, are we prepared for this to happen and that to
Yeah.
happen? Because we have to accept all outcomes. And it's
Well,
funny how you
may,
go,
may,
let's not do it.
maybe we could like touch on this on the next episode, but like big conversation we've been having with those on our 12-month coaching plan. Just last week we were talking about this was like your why and your what ifs. So what's the big why for doing this thing or wanting to do this thing? And then, what are your what ifs? What if it doesn't happen? What if you do it and it goes wrong?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
What if you do it and it doesn't go to plan? What if you do it and it does go to plan? What if,
Yeah,
like, what does
yeah,
that
yeah.
mean for you? And I think it is good to like run through those things for
Or
sure.
yeah, Elaine Langer says a mindful evaluation of a decision is the best you can do. But often we don't. We act from a
Mm.
place of fear or
Yeah, yeah,
reactivity, don't we?
yeah. Anyway,
I don't know how we sum that up as a description of that episode.
that was
It's
yeah.
got to be about Matt being
That
naked in the
that that
mirror.
that was something. That was I feel like we covered a lot there.
Yeah.
But like we always say, if you just go away with one thing that has a positive impact on your life, we're winning. We're winning. Big love, guys. Have a belter wherever you are in the world, and we'll see you in the next
I've
one. See ya.